Did the Giants miss out on Framber Valdez, or did they miss out on a possible headache? That's all coming up on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, y'all? I'm Alan Salz. Welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, thanks to you, the #1 sports podcast network. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay, but I live in Sacramento now, and I host a show on Sacktown Sports 1140, as well as emceeing Sacramento Rivercats games. All in all, I'm lucky enough to cover a team I've been a fan of all my life. Today, we are discussing Framber Valdez, who is headed to Detroit to join the Tigers. The Giants miss out on an opportunity there. Are the Giants done in general? And we take a deeper look at what the Giants have done so far. Maybe it's not as bad as a lot of fans may think. And last but not least, we had a little bit of a free sample from Keith Law and his top prospect list for the Giants. We break down some different names that we haven't talked about as much throughout the offseason. So we'll get into those today as well. All right. So Framber Valdez is gone. It's over with. And I think a lot of people were surprised where he ended up going. This is from Jeff Passan. And it was yesterday, getting closer to the evening if you were on the West Coast. Star left-hander Framber Valdez and the Detroit Tigers are in agreement on a 3-year, $115 million contract. Sources tell ESPN. Valdez, 32 years old, gets the highest AAV ever for a left-handed pitcher, as well as the highest for a Latin American pitcher. Huge move for Detroit. I got to admit, I was a little surprised that was the highest AAV. Obviously, it's a lot of money, but I was a little surprised that no other specifically left-handed pitcher had ever gotten money like that, right? Growing up, everybody says, well, if you want to make a ton of money, be a left-handed pitcher. So kind of surprising that Framber Valdez was the one to kind of break that ceiling, if you will. And now the Tigers are in a position to continue to compete as they wait out Tarek Skubal's arbitration. So that's a move that they felt like they wanted to make and not just continue to sneak up on some teams, but legitimately contend in the AL. So, good on them, smaller market, but, they decided that they wanted to make this move. Good stuff going on in Detroit right now. You got the Pistons, of course, doing their thing, #1 in the East in the NBA. The Lions as well, down year for them, but they're respectable now if they can just stay healthy. And now the Tigers putting their name in the hat, and this is from our friends at MLB Trade Rumors, from Anthony Franco. Tigers land the offseason's top remaining free agent, which is so funny. Everybody is saying it like that now because initially he was the top free agent pitcher. Framber Valdez was going into the offseason, reportedly agreeing to a 3-year deal, pending a physical. He gets a $20 million signing bonus. Valdez reunites with A.J. Hinch and gives the Tigers a lethal 1-2 pairing at the top of the rotation. He'll slot behind Tarek Skubal atop a starting staff that suddenly looks like one of the best in the American League. They have Reese Olson, Jack Flaherty, Casey Mize. If everyone gets through camp healthy, Dad push KBO signing Drew Anderson into a swing role, while second-year righty Troy Melton can either pitch out of the bullpen or wait in AAA for a rotation spot to open. They do go on to say Skubal Valdez pairing may only be together for one season, as the 2-time defending Cy Young winner is a year away from what should be a record-setting free agent contract. Skubal and the club went to a hearing this morning that'll determine whether he makes $19 or $32 million in the final year of club control. The arbitrators will not reveal their decision until tomorrow. And that was, I think that means today, because obviously this happened yesterday. So yeah, that's a little bit in the weeds for the Detroit Tigers stuff. But I do think it's interesting on the Tarek Skubal front, as they bring up the free agents. There are some fans out there that wanted to keep hope alive for the Giants, and say, hey, maybe the Giants didn't love any of these free agents and they would be willing to pay for somebody that they do want, namely somebody like Tarek Skubal, some rough connections or small connections to the Bay. It's a pitcher's ballpark. Would this be the guy that they decide, hey, we'll cash out on somebody like him? Now, I don't know if we should get our hopes up. I'm more likely to say that we shouldn't, but pitchers, in my opinion, are different to getting free agent hitters to come to Oracle Park. So that's what's going on with the Tigers. And in a way, I believe I saw that the contract has a player option after the second season for Framber Valdez. So in a way, it kind of feels like the Tigers are adding Framber Valdez. They're giving it a good go in 2026. But in a way, it also feels like they might be saying, yeah, we know we're not going to be able to keep Tarek Skubal. So Framber is going to be our new number one when that time comes. So you could look at it like that as well. And obviously, all of the same names are going to be in for Tarek that we've heard before: the Mets, the Phillies, the Dodgers, of course, all the big money National League teams, as well as the Yankees and the big money American League teams. So yeah, that broke down yesterday. Doesn't feel like a deal as far as the AAV is concerned, the annual salary. Doesn't feel like the Giants were willing to pay that type of cash. They didn't want to commit to those types of years when it was a 7-year deal, and I don't think they wanted to commit to that much money in a short-term deal either, especially with player options. So that's how this whole thing lays out to me. Did the Giants miss out? I mean, look, we read his accolades yesterday. The dude is an absolute stud, right? There's no if and buts about it. But if the Giants didn't feel like that was the type of person they wanted to bring in, maybe from a culture standpoint, that's their prerogative, right? And you don't have to agree with it. I think it would have been deadly to have him, Logan Webb, and then you have Robbie Ray and Landon Roop. And Robbie Ray, last year of his contract, you could have locked down somebody in Framber. I think if you miss out on Tarek, which there's a good chance that you miss out on Tarek, you could look back on this Framber deal and say, man, we could have got him on a short-term deal. Even if that money was a little bit higher than you wanted, you could have looked at that too. So, yeah, the Framber Valdez conversation is over, and there are a couple pitchers still hanging around: Zach Gallen, Lucas Giolito, names like that. I've said it before, and I'll say it to you again. Feels like the Giants didn't see a big gap between those guys and the Tyler Malleys of the world and the Adrian Hausers of the world. So in their opinion, if they weren't going to spend a ton of money, they felt like they could maybe penny pinch a little bit and just get guys that they feel could be as good as those names that are maybe a bit more well-known, but save some cash on the backside. So, you know, shouts out to some of the reports that came out last week about the Giants intensifying. I don't know that the Tigers were on any of those lists. I saw the Mets, I saw the Orioles a lot, and then the Tigers come out of nowhere, which makes me say again, always be weary when you start seeing reports about stuff, because if you start seeing reports about stuff, that means somebody's talking too much. And once people get talking, a lot of times those deals do not happen. So the Giants are 0 and whatever this offseason in players they were connected to and eventually signing them, right? Now, the smaller names, nobody's going to be breaking news on Tyler Malley as far as the rumors are concerned. They're just going to say, hey, this guy ended up doing this, but even the Harrison Baders didn't really hear a ton about that as well. So there should be a kind of a light that goes off in your head. If there's an article about the Giants being interested in a player, basically assume that they're not getting that player. That's how it feels right now, because all these guys that the Giants were connected to throughout the offseason, the Giants didn't get any of them. Right. And, you know, it might be a situation where you scratch your head a little bit. Luis Arias, that was because they were looking at CJ Abrams and they were looking at Brendan Donovan. They were looking at Nico Horner. But then they get Luis Arias because those things didn't happen, even though we heard about it for a lot of the time. So Framber, it's done. It's cooked. He is off to Detroit. And now the Giants have to figure out whether they are done or not adding to their roster. More Locked On Giants coming up. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Giants with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnSFGiants.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. If you're a true diehard Giants fan, the Everydayer All Access tier is built for you. You'll get one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 50% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to LockedOnSFGiants.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club and unlock all access. You can also find the link in the show notes. Next segment with you, and the question is whether or not the Giants are done. It really seems like they are, and there's a reason why they may be done, and I thought that Grant Brisbee of The Athletic did a great job breaking down how a lot of fans feel, but the reality of what the Giants did. And it might not necessarily be the offseason that you wanted, but there are some good notes to take away from it. And, Grant writes it the only way that Grant can write it. He says, "Psst, come here. I want to make you mad about the Giants offseason. It pays the bills." Earlier in the offseason, before the Giants had signed anyone, the good folks at Fangraphs released a Zips projection for them. They were surprisingly optimistic considering the work that still needed to be done. They even use the words, "If Zips is correct, the Giants don't need to put in a ton of work here," when referring to the lineup, which was a remarkable sequence of words at the time. Then the Giants signed 2 everyday players and 2 starting pitchers for a combined $64.5 million. There are questions about all of them, but should they still combine to help the roster blow those earlier projections out the water? That could be something that the Giants benefit from. Well, not quite. Here's a table that compares the projected WAR of the placeholders used by Fangraphs to the projected WAR of players they actually sign. So for the in-house WAR versus the actual WAR, in-house WAR for second base is 2.5. Their actual WAR with Luis Ariz is 1.6. That's not great. The in-house WAR for the outfielder that they were looking for, the third outfielder, 1.3. Harrison Bader is at 1.4, so that is better. The number 4 starter is at 0.7. Adrian Hauser is at a 1.2. The number 5 starter, a 0.7. Tyler Mahle, a 0.9. Total 5.2 WAR to the actual, that's in-house, to the actual WAR, 5.1. So that actually, and second base is doing a lot of, they're just not very high on Luis Ariz at all. That's really, if you take Luis Ariz out, it's a winning offseason for the Giants, but Luis Ariz is going to be the everyday second baseman. So maybe he projects better or performs better than his projected WAR, and you can go in that direction. But right now, he's bringing down that total. So Grant goes on to write, "You better believe there's necessary context missing from that table, but we'll say on the surface for now, because on the surface, it looks like the Giants committed $64.5 million to 4 players who don't really move the needle. As they say, they're going to do what the other guys were going to do, give or take, if you believe the projections. And that gets you mad, which pays my bills. That's only fun for a while, though. Here comes the context. The Giants aren't replacing the number in the left column with the one on the right. So that was the in-house versus the actual. They're snipping a little bit off the numbers in the left column and adding them to the right column. They're still going to get the best parts of the Schmozgold, as Fangraphs described the 3-headed monster of Casey Schmidt, Christian Koss, and Tyler Fitzgerald. They're just going to get less of the worst parts because they're giving fewer plate appearances to whomever of those 3 is producing the least. This is a wordier way of explaining the obvious downstream effects of paying for better players. The Giants didn't just make the production better at second base, they improved the last player on the bench too. They improved the first, second, and third options in Sacramento. The surprisingly optimistic Zips projection didn't go away. They just trickled down. Making you feel better about the offseason also pays my bills. So while it's hard to pretend that this was the most dynamic or thrilling offseason available to the Giants, it's even harder to ignore its effectiveness. The Giants needed 2 starters, some backup catching options, at least 1 outfielder, and maybe a second baseman. They checked the list off one by one, even if it took a while to finish. In doing so, they're giving themselves a chance. Fangraph's most recent attempt to project the 2026 season has the Giants as the final wild card after several off seasons of high risk, high reward signings and ultimately successful swings at expensive franchise players. The Giants finally got to have something of a maintenance offseason where they didn't have to reinvent themselves. They invested in raising the floor more than the ceiling, and that's less underwhelming than you might think. It's perfectly whelming. The best teams avoid giving too many at-bats or innings to the worst players. Yeah, and he has some more notes as far as the numbers are concerned, but I'm just going to skip to the bottom here where he ties it all together. The real point of the offseason can be explained in a couple conjunctions. The Giants signed these players to get rid of ands and replace them with ors, as in the Giants want to feel comfortable relying on Casey Schmidt, Koss, or Fitzgerald. They want to see Birdsong, Carson Whisenhunt, or Trevor McDonald make the most of an unexpected opportunity. Those are reasonable expectations. If you use and in those sentences, though, you start to become quite unreasonable quite fast. The odds against all of them start stacking up exponentially. The Giants didn't exactly spend their offseason money on cost certainty. Bader and Malley have been on the IL too much for that, but they spent it on raising the floor of the entire roster. They spent it on a better chance at the optimistic projections from Fangraphs, which were illustrated with a delightful graphic suggesting they could get contributions from all over the diamond. It'll still take only a couple disappointments and miscalculations to screw it all up, but it's hard to deny the practicality of the offseason. The Giants shouldn't fall through the floor. It's the ceiling they have to worry about now. Outstanding stuff from Grant Brisbee. And I would say this, as we are having a ceiling versus floor conversation, the margin for error is just very small. I think the problem is everything could go right and you're going to be a third wild card, right? I mean, everything could go extremely right and you could be a second wild card, but everything has to go right. If one thing goes wrong, then you're probably not going to get there. And Bader missing time, he mentioned Tyler Malley as well. The starters that you added, there's just a lot of caveats all over the place, man. So I understand what Grant is saying, and I do agree that on paper, the Giants did add what they needed. There was a checklist, but you have to keep in mind and keep the context as to what those moves were. You added a second baseman. Well, the context is nobody else wanted to let him play second base. That's Luis Arias. You added an outfielder. Well, the context is Harrison Bader misses a lot of time. You added two pitchers. Well, the context is those pitchers tend to miss a lot of time. So they did do it, don't get me wrong, but a lot has to go right in order for them to still get where they want to go. And even getting where they want to go, that ceiling isn't that high, because even if these guys stay healthy, they don't have the highest upside. So it's not higher risk, high reward. It's higher risk, decent reward, as in a third wild card, or you go crazy and everybody has a career season and, you win the NL West. I mean, sure, that could happen, or you get the second wild card. That could happen too. There's just a lot of ifs in the moves that the Giants made for somebody to be happy-go-lucky about it. I understand that they did what they were supposed to do, but so many things have to go right in order for the Giants to just be in the conversation. It's not a matter of so many things. If these things go right, the Giants can win the World Series. It's if these things go right, the Giants could be the third wild card. So that, I think, is the push and pull, which makes this thing a little difficult when you're trying to net out who the Giants are and what exactly they're going to be this next season in 2026. One more segment with you. Let's discuss the rest of Keith Law's top prospect for the Giants, but we're going to discuss some names that we don't really talk about as much. Not Joe Swar, not Bryce Eldridge. We'll get to some of the other names that you should be on the lookout for as the minor league season gets rolling as well for 2026. More Locked On Giants coming up. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who actually are a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way. Do it with Indeed. One more segment with you. And as I mentioned, we have another prospect list. This one is from Keith Law of The Athletic. And what I wanted to focus on, just some of the names that we haven't talked about as much. So just going through the top 10, you got Bryce Eldridge, Joshua Gonzalez, Gavin Keelan, Jacob Bresnahan, Johnny Level, Dakota Jordan, Bo Davidson, Carson Wisenhunt, Kiner Martinez, Argenis Kayama. So that's number 10. And like I said, I just wanted to go through those real quick. Some of the names that I wanted to bring up that maybe we haven't talked about as much, just to kind of freshen it up for you. I'm going all the way down to 20. So you got Reed Worley at 20. He's 20 years old. He is a right-handed pitcher. Worley throws a slider with the bizarre grip that gets him over 3,000 RPM on the pitch, while his fastball is light for now, up to 93, with modest projection to his slender frame. The Giants took him last year in the 9th round and paid him over slot to sign him out of high school. He's a long-term project, but could miss a lot of at-bats in the ACL or even low A just by throwing that slider. Left-handed pitcher who's 18, Carlos De La Rosa, part of the return for Doval, Harbor, Rodriguez, Tristan Vreeling, De La Rosa as well. How many people did they get back? How many players did they get back for Doval? So he has a very high slot. He touches 96. He doesn't have a clear breaking ball yet, but he's 18 throwing 96. He's throwing a slider and a sweeper, and neither is very good yet, but he also just turned 18 in November. That's crazy. He just turned 18 in November and hasn't pitched in the U.S., so you can dream on him. Lorenzo Mayola, here's another shortstop for you. The Giants' 2025 fourth rounder out of Stetson. Mayola is a strong defender who makes hard contact and has zero two-strike approach. Even in his brief pro debut in low A last year, he chased pitches out of the zone 51% of the time with 2 strikes and struck out 22 times in those 49 plate appearances. The defense alone should get him to the upper minors, and there's enough sock here in the bat that he could end up a regular if he develops a real plan at the plate. Not that that's very easy to do. Carlos Gutierrez. Gutierrez is a maybe 5'10" right fielder from Mexico. Hey, it's okay. You know, we got to shout out our smaller players as well, all right, who has played very well when healthy, but has missed time in each of his 3 seasons in pro ball with some kind of injury. I think we've talked about Gutierrez as well. He stole 26 bases in 29 attempts. He's 21 years old. He's a lefty bat. He throws righty. He's had some lower back issues, which isn't great for somebody so young. If he could hold up for a full year, he'd have everyday upside. So some of the guys that we've talked about before, Blade Tidwell. Here's a new one, Trevor Cohen at 6'1". He's 22 years old. The Giants' 3rd round pick in 2025. Cohen is a high contact hitter who hits hard line drives with an outside chance that he comes into some power later in his career. He makes hard contact, but hit only 2 homers last spring at Rutgers, even though he didn't face much good pitching. And the way he opens up his hip so early makes me question whether he'll keep up the high contact rate against better stuff. He's an above average to plus runner who played right field for Rutgers but should move to center. Keep an eye there. They got Jesus Rodriguez at 13, Parks Harbor, who we've talked about a good bit, at 12. Luis De La Torre. Luis De La Torre was born in Phoenix, grew up in Mexico. He's 22 years old. He's a left-handed pitcher, went to school in Utah, went to the Dominican Republic to sign as an international free agent in 2023 when he was already nearly 20. His velocity keeps ticking up. Now he sits 94, 95 and touches 97 as a starter with the cutter at 90, getting some carry on the high spin four-seamer. He's working on a changeup, but hasn't really used it in games yet, which is the only thing keeping him from projecting as a mid-rotation starter right now. So those are the names that we have talked about before. Yeah, it's so funny how everybody has Dakota Jordan and Bo Davidson next to each other all the time. And now I think one of them had a birthday, so they're both 23. One's 6 foot, one is 6'1", one is 220. Dakota's 220, and they got Bo Davidson at 205. Dakota does bat righty, and Bo bats lefty. They're both righty throwers, though. So, yeah, those two guys are kind of just always next to each other. Jacob Bresnahan is another interesting one because he was brought up in the CJ Abrams trade. He is the 4th-ranked prospect, according to Keith Law. He's 21 years old. Bresnahan acquired from the Guardians for Alex Cobb in the 2024 trade. Sits 92, 93 with his fastball, but has one of those invisibles that hitters can't square up because it has such good carry at the top of the zone. He's added a kick change that looks as if it will be a plus pitch for him as well. What is a kick change? The slider is more of a work in progress, and his command and control, while probably getting to above average or better in time, are more in the 45 range right now. He's a big guy who will have to maintain his conditioning as he moves up. Yeah, 6'4", 195. And I want to see how better hitters react to that fastball. If that happens, I'll be all in. So great stuff from Keith Law there, and some names that we're hoping have really good seasons so the Giants farm system can be looked at in a better light. So next offseason, some of these trades won't be, it got really close, and they will actually happen. But of course, got to see what happens with that lockout situation, the bad word, the L word, and things like that. Thank you for watching Locked On Giants. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants. Be sure to follow me on social media at _Styles Files, Styles with an I. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Giants ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnSFGiants.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel on audio. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Till then, peace.